remind you of something that you probably already recognize. That the U.S., our country, has many problems that need our attention. But the most important thing that I want you to leave with today from me is that we can rebuild the foundations of this great nation if we apply truth, integrity, and sacrifice to Washington, D.C. and into our own personal lives. We cannot lose hope. We must not lose hope. We must begin to reclaim and restore our country to the fundamentals upon which it was created. We can begin by protecting our borders, balancing a budget, and creating an environment that is conducive to job creation. For more than 70 days, we have watched the Gulf Coast. We have watched what's going on there. We have watched the Gulf Coast struggle. The news is grim, and they need some help. But if I take a moment, I'd like to point out something that I think is very ironic about that situation. The federal government has, for all intents and purposes, shut down the Gulf Coast to anybody who wants to go in or out. Complete control of what's going on down there. As the oil washes ashore, our government has from the beginning kept out the very machinery that could go and reclaim the oil out of the Gulf of Mexico. And with a closed coastline, these machine operators sit on the docks on the coast in Pensacola and in Biloxi and in New Orleans waiting to go out and reclaim the oil. Now compare our government's coastline protection to that of our national borders. Compare the complete Gulf shutdown to the half-hearted attempts by our government to do the same with our borders. They've allowed drugs, guns, and even human beings to be trafficked across our borders with mere token resistance. On one hand, you have a coastline that is closed because the government insists on it. And on the other hand, you have a border that is open because the government insists on that as well. The United States government's main responsibility is to restrain evil. It is to promote justice, and it is to preserve order. Clearly, looking at our borders, our government has failed. Our borders show that at the most basic level, that our government is broken. We must protect our borders, we must protect our citizens, and we must do it now. We must do this before any immigration reform is passed. Surely the federal government does not believe that an immigration bill without first closing our borders will do any good. They have built no trust up on that issue. We must treat a war zone like a war zone and defend it and send our troops to protect our borders. We must give assistance to the agencies that are responsible for fighting the battle down there, and we must demand that they work together to solve the problems that are on the borders of the United States of America. It is an issue of national sovereignty. Financially, our nation is $13 trillion in debt. $1.5 trillion worth of deficit spending this year, more of the same next. While other countries around the globe are reducing government size and reducing what they spend, we are expected to deal with massive deficits, new government programs and bureaucracies, banking bailouts. America has always been a global leader in democracy, finance, and industry. We should be leading other countries, not following what they are doing, and showing them how to regain civil and financial stability. And if you wonder where we're headed as a nation, then you need to look no further than the country of Greece, a country that was unwilling to sacrifice and now must rely on others to bail them out. If our country does not change and make tough choices now, we will lose our sovereignty like Greece. And our president will do more than bow at the feet of our world leaders. We must make decisions that reflect our goals of a balanced budget and a stronger, smaller federal government. The third place that we can begin rebuilding the foundations of this great nation is job creation. Congress has still not addressed the biggest weakness that this economy is facing, a lack of jobs. We are nearly 3 years into this economic disaster, and unemployment is approaching depression-level numbers. This past May, only 20,000 jobs, private sector jobs, created in this country. Congress cannot create jobs, but they can create an environment that is favorable to people getting work and for people investing in this land. Unfortunately, they have not. As Congress continues to go about politics as usual, they continue to waste tax dollars, creating huge new bureaucracies like the health care bill, and ignore employees and employers all across this land. Combine these factors with weak leadership and the largest tax increase that is coming in the history of this country, and what we have is a lack of confidence in our federal government, and most definitely a lack of confidence in Congress. Confidence. Throughout this campaign, I've had a great opportunity to meet a number of honest, hard-working people. They understand where they are. They may not understand the economics of it, but they understand that they do not have a job, and they understand that they are struggling to provide for their families. We must be ready for change. The definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I'm asking you to do something different. I'm asking you to elect a conservative independent to the United States Congress from the 1st District of Mississippi. I'm asking you to elect someone who will not be beholden to the special interest that influences career politicians. Right now in Congress, they're writing banking regulations. And guess who's helping? The 6 big banks that we bailed out in the original stimulus package. They're writing the regulation. They have the influence. It is that kind of special interest that has clouded the governing process and robbed us of sound legislation in our federal government. I want to remind you, these problems did not start overnight. For decades, we have watched the power in Washington shift from Democrats to Republicans and now back to Democrats, and nothing has changed. Both political parties chose the path of deficit spending and bailouts. Both have oppressed our children and grandchildren with an enormous federal debt, and we are still not focused on the best way to grow our economy. Do you have the confidence that the same political parties and the same career politicians will actually have the desire and the courage to make the decisions that we need to move our country forward? I'm asking you to do something decidedly different than you've done in Mississippi and vote for a conservative independent. Someone that has committed himself to running for 3 terms, 6 years, and then I'm coming home. I'm a husband, I'm a school teacher, I'm a father of 3, and I'm a deacon in my church. And those things and people around me that are holding me accountable will hold me accountable to making those decisions. And I'm asking you to trust that what I want to do for our country and America, that I will actually do those things, and then I will actually come on back home. I appreciate y'all being here today. I appreciate what you do for our country, and may we bless and honor God by the future choices that we make. Thank you.